everyone. Watch till the end of the video for a surprise. I'll see you there. Story by you/Loud and Proud. In 2014, I moved to England from Canada to gain work and travel experience, and also to find myself. I ended up living in Essex with 3 other roommates. They were all women, all a bit older than I was. I was 24 at that time, Megan was 31, Sherry was 34, and Cassie was 38. Megan was from New York, Sherry from New Jersey, and Cassie from Poland. All 4 of us shared this 3-story flat. The back of our home was the living room and kitchen. The back wall was complete glass that looked out into the garden, and the garden was completely fenced in. The house had an interesting dynamic to say the least. Tons of stories from that time in my life. I adored all my roommates, except for Cherry. After living with Cherry for 7 months, I was over her antics. One day, I came home from work. I lock the door, make myself something to eat, and go up to the bed. I brought some work home with me, so I'm in my nightie with all these papers around me and my headphones jamming out. I had headphones on because Cherry was out to dinner with work friends. That meant booze, and then soon after that, a tantrum was surely to come. I just didn't want to have to listen to her crazy scream crying. I am working away, completely focused until I feel something. I look up to see a man standing over me. I don't register it right away and passively say, "Cherry's room is on the 2nd floor," and continue to work. Cherry regularly brought strange men home, but he doesn't leave. So again I said, "Cherry's room is downstairs, you..." He then interrupts and says, "I'm not here for Cherry." A cold chill iced my veins. My fight or flight kicked in just then, and I start surveying the situation. I look him up and down, and he has a bottle of Prosecco in one hand and a knife in the other. He's about 5'10", wild muddy brown hair and black eyes, and he has a light blue polo shirt on, and one side of his collar is popped up in a distinct Manchester accent. Once I focused in, I realized his eyes were black because his pupils were completely dilated. Shit. I was in trouble. I needed an escape plan. And fortunately, this man was standing in between me and my bedroom door. I needed to get downstairs, but I needed for him to think that it was his idea. So I decided to play along. Just then, he uses his knife to pop the cork. Prosecco started flowing onto my carpet. I said, "Oh no! Let's clean that up. I prefer to drink out of a proper flute anyways." He nodded, replying, "Yeah, you're a proper classy bird. Let's go." I try to act as natural as possible. I try not to show that I am shaking all over and try to gain control over my breathing. We take the long journey down the main floor of my flat, all 3 floors. He has the back of my nightie bunched up in one hand, and I could feel the point of the knife graze my back with his other. I was trying to playfully speak with him as we walked down the stairs. I couldn't tell you what I was saying. I was most likely rambling. I couldn't hear anything over my heart beating in my ears. We get to the bottom of the stairs, and there's a hallway to my left that leads to the front door. On my right, which is much closer to us, is the kitchen and the living room. We make our way into the kitchen. and I point to the cabinets that had the wine glasses. He said he knew where they were and started towards them. I now had the kitchen table in between us. It was time to run. I burst into a sprint down the hallway towards the door. My hands fumble over the lock, shaking and sweating, and I swing open the door and see two men walking across the street. They must have been walking home from the train. There was a big train station in front of our home. I call out to them for help, and suddenly I am flung onto the ground. Little pebbles piercing my skin sent sharp pains where they jabbed. The intruder pushed me out of the way to run and escape. One of the men chased after the intruder, while the other said for me to go inside while he surveyed my home and to call the police. I lock the doors and I call the police. And while I am on my phone with dispatch, I manically run around the house to double check all the windows and doors. Suddenly, I hear a loud bang on my door. I inform the dispatch of the banging, and she informs me that the police weren't there yet. I thought it might be one of the gentlemen who helped me, and I go to look out the eye hole. And it's him, the intruder. He came back. He's banging on my door screaming that I had his glasses and that he was not done with me. I absolutely freak out. The dispatcher attempts to calm me down, but I am losing my ever-loving mind. She then said, "They are pulling onto your street now. You should hear their sirens." And I did. Thank God. The intruder then blasts off, and one officer jumps out of the passenger side while the car is still moving and chases after him. The second officer comes into my home, interviews me, and the two gentlemen, collects evidence and takes photos. And after some time of him being there, Cherry comes home and freaks out. Once the situation was explained to her, she said, "My God, that could have been me." "Yeah, thanks, Cherry. It's all about you." The next morning, I am called in to identify a man that they had in custody. I pointed him out, and I go into a little room, and the officer pulls out an evidence bag. He asked me if the items were mine, and they were. There were my underwear and photos taken from my home. The officer informed me that the intruder had been stalking me for some time now. He estimates 3 months. He had made a nest outside of our home on top of a hill that overlooked into our living room and kitchen. He is a known sex offender and drug dealer. He then told me how lucky I was to get out practically unharmed. The others weren't so lucky. So, to the man who stalked me and broke into my home, let's not meet again. However, I would love to run into those two gentlemen again, 'cause every day I am thankful for them.
Chasing in a Maze by Otherwise Ad 1747. A few years ago, I entered the University of Lausanne to enter my medical studies. I had just arrived in the city and even in the country. I was very excited to start my year, to discover the university, to meet new people, etc. Everything was going great until the end of the 3rd week. Friday, sometime around 9 p.m., I leave the library. I say goodbye to my friends and start to go home. The pace of work was already very intense, so we had been working all day and I was in a rush to get home. It was my favorite part of the day because I got to put on my music, take the subway, and then the train. It gives me a chance to rest and catch up with my thoughts. Anyway, that night it was so cold, there was no one left outside. It takes me about 7 minutes to walk from the library to the subway. I'm walking quietly with my music in my ears when suddenly I get a shiver that runs down my body from head to toe. I start to feel comfortable as if someone was watching me. And at that point, I pause my music and decide to not turn around to check in case the person is trying to be inconspicuous, and if I notice them, I was fearful that something might happen. I don't want to run either because I'm not sure if I can run faster, and I don't know exactly where to go. At this point, we pass a glass building, so I decide to look inside and pretend I'm fixing my hair. I quickly glance in the corner of my eye and my blood runs cold. There is someone walking a few feet behind me in a hoodie. I try to reassure myself that he was just finishing work and going home, and that he is cold and that is why he is wearing his hoodie, and there are no houses for civilians for quite some time. I decide to send a message to my mother saying, "Come and get me in front of the insert name of the building, please. I really don't feel safe. It is important to know that the university is 30 minutes away by car from my house." At this point, I don't find another solution and I decide to take refuge in a building while waiting for my mother to come and get me. As I was about to go back, I opened the door, took off my helmet, and went down the stairs to find a hiding place. We entered by the 3rd floor. I thought I was out of trouble when suddenly I hear the door I came through open. This time I am sure he is after me, but since I'm new, I don't know this building and where it leads. I run downstairs at full speed and I hear him behind me. I can hear this guy's footsteps running down the stairs at full speed as well. I run without looking back, being sure that he is running faster than I can, and that he will catch up with me. I don't even know where I'm going, but I pray that I don't fall into a dead end. Looking back, I even think that it was like that scene in The Shining with the labyrinth. I don't know how far ahead of him I was, so I opened a window in the hallway to make it look like I was out of there, and opened a little door further. It was a huge auditorium and it was pitch dark. I went down the stairs and hid under a desk. I put my phone on silent and did my best to hide. My mom had been texting me a lot asking me what was going on and saying she was on her way with my dad. I texted her, "I'm in insert name of building. He is looking for me, please come quickly." I hid under the desk thinking I was screwed. My hiding place sucked and he was going to find me any second. Then, I heard a thud and a huge scream, and I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life when I heard that scream. For 15 minutes my mother was sending me messages telling me to hang on, and at the end of those 15 long minutes waiting for him to find me, I finally got the message from my mom saying that she's here, and she has the police. They are going to enter the building and they need to know where I am. I just tell them I'm on the 2nd floor because I had no idea where I was, and after 2 minutes I heard the door of the auditorium open and it was the police coming after me. Once I got out, they took my statement and they said they would check out the university management. The next day, they contacted us and said that they saw on the surveillance cameras that there was indeed someone who had followed me. Apparently, there were no cameras inside that particular building though. You can't see the guy's face and therefore, we don't know who it is. They just said that security was going to do patrols at night and advised me to have someone with me when I'm out.
Story by u/RCBRXWN. I was reading some interesting posts on this subreddit that jogged my memory of something bizarre that I experienced that I still can't comprehend. I used to work late at a Kmart, usually closing, and drive home at night. There was a back way that I would take all the time through these neighborhoods to my apartment. I would never see another car until one night there was an old Buick driving ahead of me at literally 5 to 10 miles per hour. I went around looking inside the car, and this middle-aged woman was staring dead at me with a look that I could best describe as the evil smile that the Grinch had. I sped up, get in front, and now she's speeding up, matching my speed behind me. We reach a stop sign. She pulls up next to me and her face becomes all contorted like she's about to change into a werewolf. I gun it, and we're flying through the neighborhood at about 80, and she's tailgating me the whole way. I pull in my apartment, and she stays outside staring at me with that same creepy grin. I think, wow, you run into all kinds. And then I move on. Very next night, I'm headed home the same way, and it's the Buick again, 5 miles per hour again. This time, I pass her and I don't even bother looking at her. I blow through stop signs and fly down the road while she's staying right behind me. I pull into my apartment, and there she is, staring at me. Let's say that I stopped taking that road again. She must have been trying to collect my soul. Only the Lord knows. Story by u/Omega369. This actually happened a few hours ago, and I am still unsettled about the whole encounter. I decided to drop it over here to get it out of my system. I've had creeps tailgate me or try to grab my attention on the road, and I just ignore them, which always worked. But this guy takes the golden medal. My shift starts at the afternoon, and I was feeling off for most of the day. A beautiful sunny day, mind you. You know, one of those days where you drag yourself out of your bed to adulting. I decided to lift my mood up, so I wore something new that I had. A beautiful creamy white faux fur vest, and I hit the road. Look like $1,000,000, feel like $1,000,000, right? Maybe not. I played some piano tracks in hope that I'll get out of this funk. I just needed something to comfort me, and those two things didn't cut it. While I was driving to work, I decided to grab a drink. An iced crisp green tea will definitely lift my spirit. There were 2 branches of a famous coffee shop. You know who, a grinning mermaid who's playing Twister. Ring a bell? I could have gone to the first one with a drive-thru, but they used a pretty crappy tea brand as they ran out of the good stuff. So I had to go to the one that was inside the mall. Anything to feel better, right? I parked my car and saw a private fleet of black SUVs, making it difficult to view the entrance. This is important later. I grabbed a cold bottle of water and headed to the counter. I paid for my drink and got a cherry lollipop, 'cause why not? I waited for my drink, and once I got it, I started walking out. I had to pass a fountain in the courtyard before I can reach the exit. I slowed my pace as I noticed that I was walking too fast. I felt a bit off, but I just brushed it off. And as I passed between the SUVs, a bus shot through quickly, and I stopped in shock as I almost walked on its path. This didn't make me realize what was happening. As I got distracted, I wasn't aware of my surroundings. As I walked further, I had to pass an area where there isn't anyone. It was shaded but still outdoor, almost like under a bridge-style building, if that makes sense. This was the way to my car. I noticed that I wasn't aware of my surroundings till I heard footsteps on my right. Then, I saw a man in my peripheral vision walking and trying to match my speed. At first, I thought he was in a uniform, so I assumed he was part of the cleaning staff in the mall. I felt off, but I told myself that I am being paranoid and overthinking. Next to my car and on my left side was a woman with a child who were getting into their car. This will make sense later. I was sandwiched between my car and hers. I was getting my keys out of my fur vest, then I had to turn around in order to open my driver door, as I was a bit ahead of it. And once I turned, I saw a man standing. Looked like he was in his late 30s, skinny, average height, and he had a dark blue baseball cap with sunglasses, a gray shirt with some print on it, and black sweatpants, Crocs shoes with socks. He was so close that It took me by surprise, and I was startled. But being nice and polite is in my blood, so I assumed nothing. The first thing that he said, "Why are you afraid?" I told him that I wasn't and asked him what he wanted. "Is your car for sale?" he said while grinning. I said no. Then he started to ask about how my day was going and stuff along those lines. The heck? I don't know you. Alarm bells were ringing in my head, and I smiled as to not escalate the situation. I knew that I had to do something. He was blocking my way to the mall entrance, and if I decided to go the other way, which is a pretty large shaded parking lot with few people here and there. "It was nice to meet you, but I gotta leave," I said while smiling. "Give me your phone number," he said bluntly. I just repeated the same phrase and took a step closer to my door, as I didn't want to show him that I was afraid. But I was pooping bricks at that moment. Then he said something that made me want to crawl out of my skin. "Give me your phone number, so I don't have to chase you around my car." At this moment, I knew that I had to move fast, so I opened my door and ignored him. He kept talking and I wasn't sure what he was saying, as it felt muffled. My anxiety was higher than the tip of Mount Everest now, and I was hit with this realization that even in public spaces and in broad daylight with people around, you can lose your sense of safety in a split second. I closed the door quickly and locked it. My fingers felt weak, but I managed to turn on the car. He kept knocking on my window. He was so insistent. I put my car in reverse mode, but I couldn't back out. The woman was halfway getting out of her parking spot, thus forcing me to wait. He kept knocking pretty hard and saying stuff, and at that moment I honestly couldn't hear him. All I wanted was to nope out of there. I was so afraid and just baffled. I had to look out the window to see when the road will get clear so I can back out while he was standing in front of my window, rapidly knocking on it. I avoided making eye contact with him, and once the road was clear, I hit the gas pedal and sped off. I drove to random places while my eyes are fixed on my rearview mirror to make sure that he wasn't following me. It was so hard to breathe as my chest felt so heavy and my heart was beating out of my chest. I was glad he wasn't there. This creep followed me around the mall and waited for the right moment that I was alone and threatened me to give him my phone number and was totally unaware of how a creep he was. My therapist will definitely hear about this. So, to the guy with a baseball cap and Crocs with socks, let's not ever, ever meet again. Story by u/Renegade2366. When I was 18, I spent a lot of time in the Cojudo Wilderness. My favorite spot was a set of waterfalls several miles from the nearest parking area. Most visitors just park in the RV area and swam in the creek right along the gravel road. In the 2 years that I hiked those trails, I never saw anyone further than half a mile into the trail. Anyway, one Saturday, I took my girlfriend to see the waterfalls since she had never seen one in person before. We set off on the trail, and not 15 minutes into the walk, she grabbed my arm and got quiet and said she felt like she was being watched and had the heebie-jeebies. I assured her everything was safe. The only thing that I'd ever had to worry about in my part of the woods are the occasional bear or copperhead. We continued on, but she could never shake the feeling of being watched. I just figured that she wasn't used to the wilderness and was just having trouble adjusting. A couple hours later, we finally reached the end of the trail and had a picnic at the bottom of the falls. After we finished eating, she tried to check her cell phone for messages and started to panic when she realized that we had no service there. I explained to her that there was no cell reception anywhere around for miles and that we are finally alone and can enjoy the peace and solitude, which of course made her panic. We started heading back almost immediately because she was clearly scared and I couldn't help but smile, thinking that it was silly. On the way back, I explained to her how many times I'd been out there all alone and never had any problems, but she still couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. We were about a mile from the falls on the only trail around when we heard someone call from behind. I jumped nearly out of my skin and turned to see a man walking towards us. He had a rifle slung over his shoulder and a heavy beard with his hat tipped low. She took a small step behind me. "What can I do for you?" I asked, trying to sound friendly. "You guys left your cell phone back by the falls," he said, and I saw a slight grin behind his beard as he looked at my girlfriend. "Oh, thanks for the assist," I said, extending my hand. He shook his head and told me that he didn't bring it and that it was still sitting up there, and maybe we should follow him back there and get it ourselves. We politely declined and made our way back down the trail as quickly as we could, with him following us on the trail several feet behind. He followed us all the way back to our car, and she showed me her cell phone when I opened her door. And I haven't been back to that particular trail since then. And here are the top comments from my last video. Welcome to Miss Creepy Tales Riddle Time. If you know the answer, feel free to leave it in the comments. And the winner gets to be featured in the next video. I always leave a trace, so you can see where I've been. I have some extra legs, and I make people scream. What am I? Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.